The skies above Cerathia were alive with the hum of engines and the gleam of energy shields. The outer rim fleets had returned, larger and more determined than before. Word of their previous defeat had reached them, and now they sought vengeance. Queen Cerathis called her council once more. The generals spoke in hurried tones, debating tactics and formations. The tension in the room was thick. Even seasoned leaders felt fear. Yet at the edge of the chamber, Elias Kane stood calmly, studying the star maps and listening to every argument. Princess Aranel stood beside him, her golden eyes sharp and focused. "The enemy is not just large," she said quietly. "They are desperate. They will take risks that we cannot predict." Elias nodded. "Exactly. That is where we can strike. Not with raw power, but with clever tactics and coordination. We will use what they do not expect." Preparing the defenses for days, the Cerathian fleet trained under Elias's guidance. The smaller, faster ships were positioned to strike quickly. Shield generators were moved to mobile units. Hidden squads prepared to board enemy ships. Each tactic was designed to take advantage of the humans' experience with unpredictable warfare. Soldiers, who had once doubted him, now looked to Elias for instructions. He never demanded respect. He earned it through action. Princess Aranel watched him with pride. She had never seen anyone so focused, so unshakable in the face of danger. Even the queen, though reluctant, observed from a distance. She could not deny that the human had become an essential part of her kingdom's defense. Lord Vanar, however, simmered with resentment. He whispered to allies, "A human commands our soldiers. The princess admires him. This is an insult to Cerathia." Yet he had no evidence to act against Elias. The battle would reveal who was truly worthy. The first clash, the first wave of the Outer Rim fleet approached under the cover of the asteroid belt. Their ships were enormous, bristling with weapons capable of vaporizing entire planets. The Cerathian fleet waited, silent but ready. Elias directed the smaller ships to move in unpredictable patterns, luring the enemy into traps. The larger Cerathian ships held formation, drawing fire but remaining protected by mobile shields. When the enemy launched a barrage, Elias's plan unfolded perfectly. Smaller squads struck at the command ships, cutting communication lines and disabling weapons. The Outer Rim fleet, confident in their numbers, found themselves disorganized and confused. Princess Aranel, watching from the observation deck, clenched her fists. They are panicking. He is turning their own confidence against them. The queen, standing silently behind her, allowed herself a small nod. Perhaps the human's methods were as effective as he claimed. Behind enemy lines, Elias decided to take an even greater risk. A small fleet, including Princess Aranel, would move behind enemy lines to target the main command ship. The operation was dangerous. If they failed, Cerathia itself could fall. "Are you certain?" Aranel asked, her voice steady despite the danger. Elias looked at her, calm as ever. "We have trained for this. Trust in your skills and trust in your allies. We can do this together." The fleet navigated through asteroid fields and energy storms, avoiding detection. When they reached the command ship, they split into boarding teams. The Cerathian soldiers trained under Elias moved with silent precision. Inside the ship, chaos erupted. The enemy had not expected such direct action. Systems failed, communications were disrupted, and the command crew struggled to respond. Elias and his team moved swiftly, neutralizing threats without unnecessary violence. Princess Aranel followed closely, assisting the boarding squads and ensuring the humans' plan unfolded correctly. Together, they disabled the main weapon systems, leaving the enemy fleet vulnerable and forcing their retreat. Courage and leadership, outside the command ship, the battle continued. The main Cerathian fleet, guided by Elias's earlier instructions, pressed the attack. Ships moved in perfect coordination, using tactics no Cerathian general had ever tried before. The human's calm focus inspired others. Soldiers who had doubted him now followed his lead with complete trust. Even Lord Vanar had to admit silently that Elias's strategies were brilliant. Princess Aranel watched him with admiration and awe. "He is not just strong," she whispered to herself. "He is fearless, clever, and he cares about every life here." Elias, as always, remained calm. He gave orders, adapted to changes, and never lost focus. To him, this was not about glory. It was about survival and doing what was right. Turning the tide by nightfall, the battle had shifted decisively. The Outer Rim fleet, disorganized and weakened, began retreating. Their ships, once a terrifying sight, were now scattered, damaged, and vulnerable. Elias coordinated the final strikes, ensuring that the retreating forces could not regroup quickly. The Sarathians watched in awe as a human had led them to victory against overwhelming odds. In the royal chamber, Queen Sarathis observed silently. She had doubted humans, yes, but Elias had proven that courage, intelligence, and quick thinking could match any power in the galaxy. Princess Aranel approached him once more after the battle. "You have saved our kingdom," she said, her golden eyes shining. "Not with arrogance, not with brute force, but with your mind and heart." Elias shook his head. "We all saved it together. I only helped guide what was already here. Courage is not in a single person. It is in those who act when fear is present." Aranel smiled softly. "Then you are extraordinary." The court's reaction. The following morning, the court convened to recognize the events of the previous day. The nobles were hesitant at first, unable to fully accept that a human had not only survived, but led Sarathia to victory. Some whispered in amazement. Others were silent, stunned into reflection. Even Lord Vaynar, though unwilling to show it openly, respected the human's skill. Queen Sarathis rose to speak. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "The kingdom has faced a great threat. Many lives were at risk. One among us, though not of Sarathian birth, played a crucial role in defending our people. His courage, wisdom, and leadership have earned recognition. We are grateful." There was a moment of silence. Then, applause and nods of respect slowly spread through the hall. Princess Aranel stepped forward, placing her hand lightly on Elias's shoulder. "I too am grateful. More than anyone else, I have seen his courage, his wisdom, and his heart. He has earned my admiration and my trust." Whispers filled the hall. Some nobles were shocked that the princess would openly declare such feelings for a human. Others, however, began to see the truth. Elias was no ordinary envoy. He was someone worthy of admiration, respect, and perhaps more. A quiet moment. Later, in the palace gardens, Elias and Aranel walked together. The battle had ended, but the tension remained. Both understood that the galaxy was vast, full of challenges yet unseen. "You fought brilliantly," Aranel said softly, "not just with your skills, but with your calm, your planning, and your courage. You inspire everyone around you." Elias smiled faintly. "I only did what was necessary. True courage is not in seeking glory, but in acting when it matters most." The princess looked at him, her expression serious. "And yet you have shown more than courage. You have shown that humans, though young in the galaxy, can be as wise, as brave, and as worthy as any Sarathian. Perhaps even more so." Elias remained silent, knowing her words carried both admiration and responsibility. The galaxy was changing. Humans had proven themselves once, but greater challenges would come. By the end of the day, Sarathia had survived. The outer rim threat had been repelled. The kingdom had witnessed something remarkable. A human standing shoulder to shoulder with Sarathians, guiding them to victory against impossible odds. The queen, once skeptical, now regarded Elias with measured respect. Princess Aranel, her admiration growing, understood something that others could not yet see. The human had become more than an ally. He had become a symbol of hope, courage, and the possibility of change. And in the quiet of the night, as stars glimmered above the palace, Elias Kane prepared for what was next. The battle was won, but the war for the galaxy, and for trust, loyalty, and the future was only beginning. Captain Elias Ward had not worn a uniform in almost 20 years. Once his name had been spoken across star systems, whispered by enemies and honored by allies. He had led human fleets in the border wars, fighting against alien powers that had threatened Earth and its colonies. But those days were long gone. Now he lived quietly on the outer rim, far away from politics, far away from command. The neutral station of Halris Prime was not beautiful, but it was safe. Traders from dozens of worlds passed through its long corridors every day. Its docking bay smelled of fuel and old metal, and its markets buzzed with voices speaking in many languages. Elias liked it for one reason. No one here cared who he used to be. At least that was what he thought. Elias had just finished a long day of repairs on a small cargo ship. He was not rich, but his hands were skilled, and his quiet work fixing ships gave him enough credits to live without worry. He carried his toolkit back through the docking bay, ready to return to his quarters. The crowd was light this time of day. Most crews had already gone to the taverns or the market. That was when he felt it, a presence behind him. Strong, steady, and watching, Elias had been a soldier too long to mistake that kind of attention. Slowly he turned. A tall figure in dark armor stood a few paces away. The armor was sleek, ceremonial yet practical, with markings of a foreign military. The figure's helmet covered the face, but Elias already guessed from the design. Zayari. His heart tensed. The Zayari had once been humanity's fiercest enemies. They were disciplined, proud, and ruthless in war. Elias had fought them for years. He had thought he would never see one so close again. The armored figure stepped forward, moving with confidence. The crowd in the docking bay seemed to shrink away, leaving the two of them standing alone. The figure stopped directly before Elias. Then, with a slow movement, the helmet was lifted and tucked under one arm. She was a woman. Her features were sharp, angular, with eyes that glowed faintly like molten metal. Her skin carried a pale silver tone, common among her kind, and her hair, dark and tied back in braids, gave her a regal presence. She was not just any Zayari soldier. Elias could see from the sigils on her armor. She was a general. "Captain Elias Ward," she said, her voice calm yet carrying weight. Elias stiffened. "I don't go by captain anymore," he replied. His voice was low, careful. She stepped closer. And then, to his shock, she leaned near, her lips close to his ear. Her words were a whisper, but they struck him harder than any weapon. "My father," she said, "always used to talk about you." Elias froze. He pulled back slightly, staring at her face, trying to read if this was some kind of trick. "Your father?" She nodded, her expression unreadable. "General Vaynar Kareth, commander of the Eastern fleets during the border wars." Elias remembered the name at once. General Vaynar had been one of the most feared Zayari commanders, a strategist who had forced humanity into desperate battles. He had died years ago, near the war's end, and now his daughter was standing before Elias. For a long moment, Elias said nothing. The memories stirred within him like restless ghosts. Battles fought, lives lost, worlds burning in the distance. And this woman's father had been at the heart of it, yet she had whispered those words not as a threat but as something else. Elias's voice came out steady. "I never met him in person. Why would he speak of me?" She looked around briefly, then gestured for him to walk with her. Reluctantly, Elias followed as she led him out of the docking bay down a quiet corridor. The station lights flickered above them, and the sound of the market faded behind. Finally, she stopped in an empty chamber overlooking the stars. Beyond the glass, ships moved like fireflies against the void. She turned to him, her eyes firm. "My name is Kareth Vaynar's daughter Lyra," she said. "Now, General Lyra Kareth, I command what remains of the Zayari defense fleet." Elias crossed his arms. "And why are you here? Why seek me out after all these years?" Her gaze softened, but only slightly. "Because my father believed you were more than just an enemy. He spoke of you not with hatred, but with respect. He told me, if the day ever came when the stars darkened and war returned, I must find you." Elias frowned. "That sounds like the words of a man who knew something." Lyra nodded. "He did. He left behind records encrypted, hidden. But I cannot open them without help. They speak of a storm that is coming, something greater than human or Zayari, something my father feared more than he ever feared you." The words hung in the air. Elias studied her face. She was serious. He could see no trace of deception. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Because he said you would understand," she answered. Elias let out a breath. He turned toward the window, staring at the moving ships. He had sworn never to return to war, never to step back into the shadows of command. Yet here was a daughter carrying her father's legacy, speaking of hidden threats and storms yet to come. Silence stretched between them. Then Lyra spoke again, softer now. "You may want peace, Elias Ward, I do as well. But peace will not hold if what my father warned of is true. You were once humanity's greatest defender. I ask that you help me, not for Zayari, not for humans, but for the galaxy itself." Elias's jaw tightened. His heart battled between weariness and duty. He wanted to turn her away, to say her words meant nothing. But deep inside, he knew he could not ignore them. He had seen too many wars begin with whispers ignored. Finally, he spoke. "Show me these records. Let me see what your father left behind." Lyra gave the faintest nod, as if she had expected this. Her eyes, though alien, carried a spark that reminded Elias of countless young soldiers he had once led. Determined, unyielding. "We will leave at dawn," she said. "The journey will not be safe. Others seek what my father left behind." Elias turned back to the window one last time. The stars stretched endlessly, cold and distant. His quiet life was already falling behind him, slipping away like a shadow, and so it began again. The following morning, Elias Ward stood on the boarding ramp of a sleek Zayari shuttle. Its black hull gleamed under the lights of Halros Prime's docking bay, sharp lines and alien symbols carved across its surface. He had never stepped aboard a Zayari craft willingly before, but now he carried only a small pack, leaving behind the quiet life he had built over 2 decades. General Lyra Kareth waited at the top of the ramp, her armor replaced with a simple uniform of dark cloth, though the sigils of her rank still gleamed on her shoulders. She nodded at him, no smile, only steady calm. "You came," she said. Elias gave a small shrug. "You said we leave at dawn. I've never liked being late." Her eyes studied him carefully as though searching for weakness. Then she turned, leading him inside. The shuttle's interior was narrow but efficient, glowing with pale light. The crew, all Zayari soldiers, glanced at Elias with wary eyes. Their expressions carried tension, even suspicion, but they did not speak. They saluted their general and went about their duties. Elias felt their stares. To them he was not just a human. He was a man who had once fought their people, a commander whose tactics had destroyed fleets. Old scars were not easily forgotten. Still, Lyra treated him not as an enemy but as someone chosen. When the shuttle lifted free of the station, Elias looked through the viewing panel as Halros Prime shrank behind them, a spinning ring of metal fading into the dark. The stars stretched wide, endless, cold. He wondered if this was the last time he would ever see that station, the last time he would walk as a simple mechanic with no weight on his shoulders. Hours passed in silence until Lyra finally spoke. "My father was not the kind of man who admired easily," she began, sitting across from Elias in the command cabin. "To him, enemies were enemies. But with you, it was different. He studied your strategies. He even kept records of your victories." Elias raised an eyebrow, strange admiration considering I was fighting him. "He respected strength and cleverness," Lyra said. "He said you never wasted soldiers, never fought for pride. You fought to protect. That made you dangerous. But also different." Elias leaned back, arms crossed. "And what does that matter now?" "He's gone," her gaze sharpened. "Because he believed that when the machines rose again, only someone who fought like you could stop them." The words hung in the air like ice. Elias frowned deeply. "Machines?" She nodded. "You fought border wars against us." But he always believed the real threat was not Zayari, not humans, not any empire. He spoke of an ancient enemy, one that once nearly ended all life in the stars. He called them the Kralith machines. Elias's eyes narrowed. He had heard whispers of such things during the wars. Rumors traded in the dark corners of strategy rooms dismissed as myths. A race of living machines, long buried, waiting. "You're saying they're real?" he asked slowly. Lyra's voice lowered. "Yes, and my father believed they would return in our lifetime. He left encrypted files describing what he learned during secret expeditions, files I cannot open alone." Elias tapped his fingers on the armrest, thinking, "So you seek me to unlock your father's secrets? Why me?" "Because he said you would understand," she replied. "He left codes only a human mind would solve. He trusted you even if you never met." Elias let out a slow breath. His chest tightened as if old ghosts had awakened. He had spent years trying to leave war behind, yet here it was, reaching for him again. Their journey brought them into Zayari space. Elias looked out as alien starships patrolled the border, sleek and dangerous, their hulls carved with glowing symbols. He remembered facing those very ships in battle. Now they let the shuttle pass unharmed. On the 3rd day, they arrived at a desert world called Vaynar's Rest. Once it had been General Vaynar's private stronghold, far from cities and politics. Now only sandstorms moved across its surface, sweeping endlessly over jagged cliffs and broken ruins. The shuttle landed near a cluster of towers half buried in sand. The wind howled as Elias followed Lyra down the ramp. The air was dry, sharp against his lungs. Soldiers formed a protective ring around them as they moved toward the entrance of the largest tower. Inside, the air was cooler, though thick with dust. Long corridors stretched into the darkness, lit only by old power crystals that still flickered faintly after decades. "This is where my father kept his records," Lyra said, her voice echoing. Few knew of it. "He said if I ever came here, it must be with the one man he trusted." Elias's eyes scanned the stone and metal walls, carvings telling of Zayari battles long past. Strange symbols were etched deeper within, ones he did not recognize. At the end of the hall stood a sealed chamber. A heavy console rested at its side, the lock glowing with alien patterns. Lyra turned to him. "This is it." His last words, his warnings. "Can you open it?" Elias stepped forward, studying the console. The patterns were complex, shifting like puzzles designed to test patience. But as his fingers hovered above the keys, he noticed something. Hidden layers beneath, almost like human ciphers disguised within alien code. He frowned. "Your father didn't trust even his own people with this." "No," Lyra said. "He trusted you." Elias began working. Hours passed as he unlocked one layer after another. Sweat formed on his brow as the console resisted, but slowly the code yielded. Finally, with a hiss of air, the chamber door slid open. Inside, they found rows of data crystals and a single projection device. Lyra stepped forward, lifting one crystal, her hands trembling slightly. "Father," she whispered. Elias stood back as she activated the projection. The air shimmered, and suddenly the image of General Vaynar appeared. Older, stern, his silver hair tied back, his eyes sharp as steel. "Lyra," the recording began. "If you see this, I'm gone. And if Captain Elias Ward stands beside you, then I was right to believe in him." Elias stiffened. The hologram continued. "The Kralith machines are real. I have seen fragments of their fleets hidden in the void beyond known stars. They do not live, they do not die, they only consume. Our wars, human and Zayari, were meaningless compared to what is coming. Only together can we resist them. And only Elias Ward, the strategist who fought not for conquest but for survival, will know how to resist them when they awaken." The image flickered, then showed scenes. Ancient wreckage drifting in black space. Metallic shapes half buried in ice. Massive machines with eyes of fire. Lyra's face was pale, her hands clenched. Elias stared, the weight of the revelation pressing heavy on his chest. The recording ended with Vaynar's final words. "If the stars darken, do not wait for the council. Do not wait for orders, act or we all fall." Silence filled the chamber. Elias felt the air heavy around him. Finally he spoke. "If this is true, then the galaxy has no idea what's coming." Lyra turned to him, her voice low but fierce. "That is why I found you. My father believed in you, and now I must believe in you too." Before Elias could answer, the ground shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling and alarms from the shuttle crew echoed down the hall. A soldier rushed inside. "General, unknown ships have entered orbit. They're not Zayari, and not human." Elias's eyes hardened. He knew what that meant. The machines had found them. The tremor that had rattled Vaynar's rest continued, shaking dust from the ancient towers. Elias Ward's heart pounded in his chest as he turned toward General Lyra Kareth. Her face was calm, though her eyes were sharp and alert. "They're here," she said, voice steady but urgent. "The unknown ships that scanned our system. My father's warnings. They may not have been exaggeration." Elias clenched his fists. "We need to know what we're facing." "Do you have any idea who or what they are?" Lyra shook her head. "Only fragments. My father called them the Kralith machines. Ancient, powerful, and relentless. If they strike, no fleet in known space can stand against them unprepared." He stared at the horizon. The desert wind howled outside, carrying sand that clung to their armor and hair. Above the horizon, the faint glint of ships appeared in orbit. Shapes unlike any human or Zayari design. They moved with precise, almost mechanical patterns, glowing faintly as if alive. "We need the data," Elias said. "We have to know exactly what he left behind." Inside the chamber, Lyra led him to the vault. The records her father had hidden were carefully stored. Dozens of data crystals, scrolls, and a projection device. Elias began methodically examining each crystal, comparing symbols and patterns. Hours passed as he decrypted layer after layer, working with a precision that had once made him the greatest human strategist. Lyra watched silently. She could see the intensity on his face, the focus of a man who had spent years thinking through impossible problems. Her father had said Elias Ward was special. Now she understood why. Finally, a pattern emerged. The crystals contained records of the Kralith machines, their structure, behavior, and weaknesses. They were not just ships, they were autonomous war engines, capable of adapting and learning from their enemies' strategies. Their fleets had been hidden for centuries, dormant in uncharted space, until something had awakened them. They learn, Elias murmured. Every encounter. They don't tire, they don't surrender. Their attacks evolve with every battle. This is worse than anything humans or Zayari have faced before. Lyra's jaw tightened. That's why my father warned me. He feared what would happen if the galaxy remained divided when they returned. Elias paused, looking at her. We can't just wait for the fleets to assemble. We need a plan. We need allies. And most of all, we need proof to convince others this is real. She nodded. My father said the same. He left traces of their activity in the outer rim. If we reach the coordinates, we can observe them directly and gather evidence. Then perhaps the Council will listen. The journey to the outer rim was perilous. The shuttle carried only a small crew of trusted Zayari soldiers, along with Elias and Lyra. Every jump through hyperspace felt tense. Every radar ping caused the crew to glance nervously at one another. Elias spent hours examining the decrypted data, plotting routes and strategies as if preparing for a battle already begun. When they arrived near the coordinates, space stretched black and endless. Floating among the stars were massive shapes, wreckage, debris, and structures of alien design. Elias could feel his stomach tighten. The records had not exaggerated. These machines were massive, powerful beyond imagination. They've been dormant for centuries, Elias said, and now they're awake. Lyra studied the formation through the observation deck, and if the Council does not act, they will strike first against the weakest colonies. Then the rest of the galaxy will fall into chaos. Suddenly, a signal appeared on the shuttle's instruments. An automated probe, likely left by her father, activated as they entered the area. Holographic images flickered to life, showing clusters of ships, energy flows, and mechanical constructs. Elias studied them closely. These are not just weapons, he murmured. They are self-replicating factories. They can rebuild fleets even as they fight. We cannot defeat them with brute force alone. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. That is why we need strategy. My father believed humans had ingenuity, something the machines cannot anticipate. That is why he trusted you. Elias felt a mix of pride and pressure. His quiet life had vanished in an instant. The galaxy, it seemed, was once again depending on him. For days they studied the machine's patterns, recording movements, energy signatures, and weaknesses. Elias worked tirelessly, often late into the cold nights, tracing battle strategies and defensive formations. Lyra assisted, translating Zayari notations into a format he could understand. As they worked, Lyra shared memories of her father. He was not like other generals, she said one evening. He believed in honor and respect for life even in war. That is why he kept these records secret. He trusted only those who shared his values. Elias looked at her. And now you trust me even though we were enemies? Her eyes met his. I do. Because you are who he said you were, and because the galaxy needs us to act together. Not as enemies, but as allies. Their bond, forged in respect and necessity, grew stronger each day. They trained the crew in tactical maneuvers, prepared contingency plans, and began building a small, disciplined strike force from what little resources they had. One night, as Elias reviewed movement patterns of the machines, Lyra spoke softly. My father said the first strike would come soon. He feared we would not be ready. Elias frowned. If the machines attack the colonies, millions could die before anyone believes us. We need proof the Council cannot ignore. Lyra nodded. We may not have time to wait for permission. That is why my father left the final instructions here. If necessary, we strike alone. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Elias. He had survived wars, led fleets, and planned campaigns that decided the fate of worlds. Yet now the task seemed larger than ever before. The machines were not just enemies, they were a threat that could erase civilizations. Still, he did not hesitate. Humans had always survived impossible odds, and Elias Ward had never turned away from a fight that mattered. The next day, as they prepared to leave the outer rim, alarms blared across the shuttle. Sensors detected rapid movement, a swarm of unknown ships approaching. Elias moved to the observation deck. They found us, Lyra's jaw set. The Kralith machines. They've been tracking anything that disturbs their region. We are too close to be ignored. The shuttle shook as energy pulses flashed across space. The machines were intelligent, adapting to their presence. They did not attack directly yet, but their formations were shifting surrounding the observation point. Elias studied the display. "They're testing us. Learning our responses," Lyra placed a hand on the console. "Then we must show them we are unpredictable. My father would want us to strike smart, not blindly." For hours they evaded the initial probes, gathering as much data as possible while remaining hidden. Each maneuver required precision, cooperation, and trust. Every moment felt like a step closer to disaster or triumph. Finally, Elias turned to Lyra. "We have enough. We understand their patterns. Now we need to warn the Council, or gather forces ourselves if they refuse to act." Her eyes reflected determination. "Then we prepare. My father believed in you. I believe in you. And now the galaxy must trust us to act before it is too late." Outside the observation deck, the machines lingered in silence, shadows among the stars. They were vast, relentless, and intelligent. But Elias Ward, guided by experience, courage, and the trust of a powerful ally, felt a spark of hope. Humanity had survived worse, and this time they would not face the threat alone. The stars stretched endlessly outside the shuttle's observation deck, silent and cold. Elias Ward sat with his hands clasped, staring at the black void. Every time he thought of the Kralith machines, a chill ran down his spine. They were not just ships or weapons, they were living threats of pure logic and destruction, capable of learning from every move he and Lyra made. Lyra Kareth stood beside him, her silver eyes sharp and alert. "We cannot wait any longer," she said. "They are moving closer to inhabited systems. The colonies will be their first target if we do nothing." Elias nodded. "We warned them through the Council. They won't act without proof, and by then it may be too late." Lyra's jaw set. "Then we act alone." The shuttle glided into a strategic orbit above a small human colony called HFY. It was a vibrant world, with sprawling cities and oceans of blue. To Elias it looked peaceful, almost fragile against the looming threat. Sensors indicated multiple Kralith machine probes approaching silently. "Here they come," Elias said, his voice low. "We need to protect the people and buy time to gather more intelligence." "We cannot let the machines see us as easy prey." Lyra nodded. "I will lead a strike team. You handle coordination and strategy." The plan was risky but simple. They would intercept the machine probes before they reached populated areas, forcing them into a position where the humans and Zayari could observe patterns and weaknesses without being destroyed. Hours later, they launched from orbit. The shuttle acted as a mobile command post, sending tactical commands to smaller craft manned by both human and Zayari soldiers. Elias coordinated every maneuver, calling out formations and strategies. Lyra led the strike team personally, her ship moving with precision, cutting through the void like a blade. The first probe appeared, a metallic shape, sleek and unfamiliar, moving with unnatural speed. Its energy pulses lit up the darkness like lightning, scanning for threats. Lyra's voice came through the comms. "Hold fire. Let it approach. Observe its pattern." Elias nodded, analyzing. "It's testing our response. Note its energy shifts. It's adapting already." The probe darted closer, and with calculated precision, Lyra's team performed evasive maneuvers. The probe's sensors followed, analyzing every move. Elias realized the Kralith machines were not predictable. They learned instantly. "Prepare for countermeasures," Elias instructed. "We need to trick it, not fight it head-on." Minutes turned into tense hours. The team executed coordinated moves, baiting the probe into false attacks, observing how it reacted. Every success was a small victory, every misstep a warning. Elias felt the familiar adrenaline he had once known in battle, the mix of fear and focus that sharpened the mind. Finally, the probe backed off, retreating slightly into the void. Sensors showed it relaying data to a larger formation farther out. "They're calling reinforcements," Lyra said. Her voice was calm, but Elias sensed the tension. Suddenly, the void lit up. Dozens of machine constructs emerged from the shadows, massive warships, each unlike any human or Zayari design. Their surfaces shimmered with energy, and their movement was coordinated with terrifying efficiency. Elias's stomach clenched. "They've learned from the probe," he said, "and now they are coming in force." Back on HFY, alarms rang across the colony. The people looked to the sky as massive shapes appeared in orbit, casting shadows over cities and oceans. News reports tried to capture what was happening, but no one understood the scale of the threat. The machines were unlike anything recorded in history, silent and unstoppable in their approach. Elias and Lyra stayed calm, coordinating with their small fleet. The human and Zayari ships were vastly outnumbered, but that did not matter. What mattered was strategy, coordination, and the unpredictability humans could bring. Divide and confuse them, Elias instructed. Use the terrain of space. Pull them into narrow asteroid fields, force them to adapt. Every second counts. Lyra executed the maneuvers flawlessly, weaving through asteroid belts, leading machine constructs into areas where their numbers counted for less than their speed. She was a general in her own right, skilled, fearless, and precise. The battle escalated. Laser beams and energy pulses streaked across space. Explosions rocked smaller ships, but Elias's tactics kept the losses minimal. He realized the machines were learning even faster than he had predicted. Every trick he had prepared was anticipated after a few minutes. "This is worse than I thought," Elias muttered. "They're not just machines, they're students of war. They evolve. Then we must evolve faster," Lyra said. She turned her ship sharply, executing a maneuver that Elias had never seen, confusing the machines and giving their fleet a brief advantage. The human and Zayari ships struck at the machines' weak points discovered earlier, scoring critical hits. Sparks and debris floated in the void as one machine construct collapsed, its energy core flickering before going dark. Elias allowed himself a brief smile. "Good work, but there are more out there, and they'll adapt quickly." Hours passed in intense combat. Elias realized that fighting the machines was not about destroying them all. It was about buying time, understanding their patterns, and gathering data to prepare for the next strike. The lives of millions depended on every decision he made. During a brief pause in the battle, Lyra approached him. "You are still as remarkable as my father described," she said quietly. Elias shook his head. "I'm just trying to keep people alive. That's all." "Your skill saves more than lives," Lyra said. "It gives hope. My father believed in you for that reason, and now I do too." For a moment, the battle seemed distant, replaced by the weight of responsibility and trust between the two of them. In the silence, Elias realized something profound. Humans were capable not just of survival, but of leading alliances, even across species. But the respite was short. Sensors detected a new wave of machines approaching from the outer rim, larger than the first, moving faster and more organized. Elias's mind raced. He knew that their fleet alone could not withstand a direct attack. "They're coming too fast," he said. "We cannot fight them head-on. We need a trap, a diversion, anything to slow them down." Lyra nodded. "The asteroid field near the northern quadrant. We can lure them there. Their size will work against them." The plan was dangerous. One wrong move and SCIFI-HFY would be lost. But Elias knew they had no choice. Humans and Zayari could not wait for the Council's approval. They had to act. With careful coordination, the fleet moved. The machines followed, eager to crush what they believed to be a minor threat. But as they entered the asteroid field, their movements became slower, restricted. Ships collided with floating debris. Energy shields flickered under pressure, and Elias's team struck with precision. Explosions lit the dark void, energy beams cutting through the shadows. The machines were powerful but not invincible. They adapted. But the human unpredictability and Zayari discipline gave the fleet a chance to regroup and observe. At the height of the battle, Elias realized that this engagement, though small, had confirmed something crucial. The machines could be challenged. They could be outsmarted, if only the right strategies were used. Lyra's voice came through the comms. "Captain Ward." Look, Elias turned. Ahead of them, a massive Kraloth command ship hovered, directing the smaller constructs. Its energy core glowed brighter than any weapon he had ever seen. "This is their leader," Elias said. "If we can gather data on it, we might have a chance at winning the next battle." The battle ended with the machines retreating, pulling back into the void. The human and Zayari fleet had survived, but barely. Ships were damaged, crews exhausted, and the colony of SCIFI-HFY had been shaken to its core. Elias and Lyra sat quietly in the observation deck. Silence fell between them, only broken by the hum of the shuttle systems. "They learned," Elias said, "and they will come back stronger." Lyra nodded. "But so did we, and now we know what we face." "My father's warnings. They were true. But we are not powerless. Elias allowed himself a small smile. Humans and Zayari had stood side by side, defying the odds. For the first time in decades, he felt a spark of hope. Outside, the stars stretched endless and silent, but Elias Ward knew one thing. The galaxy would not fall quietly, and they would be ready. The first battle had been won, but the war was only beginning.